Friends, welcome to St. Anthony's Catholic Student Center at UTSA. Peter is back to square one. Can you imagine a situation where in your life you try so hard and get to the peak of everything, and all of a sudden one day you realize you're back to where you were, to square one? Today's gospel, we see this situation with Peter. After Jesus commended him last Sunday, this Sunday, Peter gets harsh words from Jesus. Get behind me, Satan, for you think not as God does, but as human beings do. Follow Jesus on his own terms. Can we? Do I follow Jesus on Jesus' terms or on mine? Do I embrace the cross or do I pick and choose? Do I take up my cross daily or once in a while? Daily. Taking up the cross daily is the demand for every disciple. There is the puzzle, the power, and the perfection in the cross of Christ. How can we embrace the cross daily, joyfully? How can we accomplish the mission of Christ and the Christian mission without the cross? Taking up the cross daily. Underline the word daily. In the first reading, we see the prototype of Jesus' suffering in Jeremiah, who experienced prolonged suffering, lamentation. Jeremiah becomes the prototype of suffering Christ. He lived the will of God bravely, taking up every suffering he faced, endured it. As he says, becomes like a fire, burnt in my heart, imprisoned in my bones, grew weary holding up, to the point he says, I cannot endure it. The cross puts us to the test. The cross pushes us to the edge, but the cross gives us strength to embrace joyfully and generously. In the second reading, we see how Paul is inviting us to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice, as a cross which we embrace daily, not once in a while, not picking and choosing, but daily. That's the toughest demand, because our lives are not conformed to the world, but our lives are conformed to the cross of Christ. When I embrace the cross of Christ, I do what is good, pleasing to God, and perfect. When all of us as disciples embrace the cross of Christ, we do what is good, pleasing to God, and perfect. And when we do so, embracing the cross daily, the Spirit of Christ will begin to flow in our bloodstream. We will be characterized, we will be distinguished as the authentic disciples of Christ, who embrace the cross daily, not once in a while, not picking and choosing. Peter's confession on last Sunday, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God, on this Sunday, embracing the mission of Christ, but he doesn't want to embrace the cross. That's where Peter needed admonition. That is where Peter needed correction. If Peter, the vicar of Christ, to whom Jesus said, you are the foundation, needed admonition, correction, I believe you and I need that correction too, to embrace the cross daily. Sometimes we pick and choose discipleship. For us, disciples of Christ, the cross is not an option, it is the necessity. Origen, one of the church writers early church writers said, Peter, you place is behind me, not in front of me. It is your job to follow in the way I choose, not in the way you would like to go. These are the words of Jesus to Peter. Follow Jesus on Jesus' terms, not mine, not ours. We don't pick and choose. We pick up the cross, embrace it joyfully and daily. In today's gospel, Peter, who was called the foundation stone, becomes the stumbling stone. Jesus says, You're on my path. You're not thinking as God does. Get behind me. Learn from me. Take up the cross daily. Only after admonition and correction, Jesus says to Peter, Deny oneself, take up your cross daily, and follow me. Deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow me. Is my following of Christ and the spirituality of discipleship is a feel good factor, once in a while thing? The cross is not for the compartments of my life. The cross is the very crux and the constituting element of my life. Cross is not for once in a while, but cross of Christ is for daily. That is how I'm purified. That is how I embrace the cross joyfully and generously and daily. The cross becomes then the crux and the very construction of my life as disciple. A follower of Jesus becomes a disciple only when embracing the cross daily, daily, daily. Otherwise, we cannot be fully conformed to Christ. We will be compromised and we will conform ourselves to the standards of the world, but not to the standards of the cross and that of the Christ. Cross of Christ is not seasonal, but embracing it joyfully and generously daily, daily, daily. Follow Jesus on Jesus' terms, not on mine, not on ours. Embrace the cross joyfully, generously, daily, daily, daily. Father Praveen Lakisetti here at St. Anthony's Catholic Student Center at the UTSA. Thank you and God bless.